Today I'm going to set up a Debian template inside Proxmox. I'm doing this so I can quickly deploy Debian virtual machines whenever I'm working on a new project. And if you're interested in seeing how I do this, come check it out. I've decided to use Debian for my home lab because it is a community-driven project and it is the essence of open source. So in order for me to create a template from it, I'm going to have to download an ISO that I'll use to install on a virtual machine. And to get that, I'm just going to use this download link here off the debian.org website. I'm going to right-click on it. The pop-up, I don't think you'll be able to see, but it gives me the option to copy the link address. So I'm going to click that, and then I'll transfer over to Proxmox here, and we'll have to sign in. And then we're going to have to download that ISO. As you can see here, I'm already in the local storage, and ISO is highlighted. And I'll click on the download from URL, and I will just paste in there that link that I just copied, and then I'll hit query URL. And as you can see here, it found the ISO file for installing Debian, and we'll download that. Then when that's done, I'll create a new virtual machine to install it on. Alright, the download finished. You don't have to sit there and watch it, but I had nothing better to do. Now, in order to create a template, we start with a virtual machine. And I'm going to put this one 900, because that's the range I'd like to keep my templates in. I'll name it Debian, template, like that. And here's where that ISO we just downloaded comes into play. You'll select that for the ISO image. The system, I'm just going to leave it as a BIOS system, but I do want this QEMU agent available. I will install a program that interacts with that in a second. 32 gigs should be big enough for my template. I'm going to give this all of the cores on this system, and I'm going to give it 14 gigs of RAM. I'm giving it 14 gigs because that's about how much free memory I have. And I only have the one network bridge, so we'll leave it at that. And we will start after being created. And that did not take very long. The virtual machine has been created and it is running here. So I'll go full screen so we can install Debian. I don't need that open. I'll use the graphical installer. These settings are going to be user specific. I do speak English and I am from Canada. I also use an American keyboard. Okay, so we got to put a host name on this VM, and I'm just going to call it Debian template again. This is just temporary. As you'll see in the future, when I make new virtual machines from this template, it's going to get a whole new host name. I don't have a domain. Now I want to give this a root password. A really strong one would be advisable. And you also have to create a non-root user. I'm just going to call this one temp because it's only for the install. And I will give it a password. Hopefully I typed that right. Good. Select your time zone. Now this is where I'm going to deviate a bit from the installation program. If I use the guided use entire disk on here, it's going to give me a separate partition for swap. And if I have that on there, it's going to inhibit the cloud init program that I'm going to be installing later on. So I'm going to go to manual, select my hard disk, and just do a simple partition on here. A single one. I'm going to use all the size I can get on there, and I will use ext4. Now this is asking me, you don't have any swap space. That's how I want it right now, and I will fix that with a swap file later on. And we'll write those changes. So this is going to create the partitions, and it's going to install the base system. So when that's done, I'll be back. Alright, so the base system is installed, and now it's asking me to configure the package manager. I do not have any additional media, which is what it's asking right now, so I'll just click continue. And it's asking me to configure the package manager by location. I'm just going to use the defaults because I've never had a problem with them. Though technically I might be able to find a download mirror that's closer to where I'm at physically. I've never found the need to do that. So I'm just going to use the standard configuration. So here it's asking if we want to participate in a package usage survey. I'm going to say yes to this because this being a community-driven project and no cache is changing hands, I want to support these guys as much as possible. This will help with keeping packages up to date with the most used services. And since this is just going to be a server and I won't have any graphical desktop environment needed, I'll get rid of those two, but I do want an SSH server on here. So this screen here is warning us that the bootloader is about to be installed. If we had another operating system installed here, it might make it impossible to boot into since this is not seeing any other OSs. But since we don't have anything else installed on here, we can just go ahead and hit continue, select the disk that we just installed on, and click continue. Alright, so the installation's completed. When I click continue here, we'll reboot, and then I will make some changes inside the new VM. Okay, so I'm booted into my fresh install of Debian here, and I'm going to sign in as root. There's a few things I want to do before I turn this into a template. First thing I want to do is make sure that the install is up to date. It should be because I used the net installer, and it is. So now I want to install a few packages. First of all, I'm going to install Vim because that's my preferred text editor, and I would like it to automatically be installed on all my virtual machines. Then I want to install the QEMU guest agent. I also want to install Cloud Init and Cloud Init ramfs growroot. And that's the stuff that's going to do the magic sauce, is that the file system will be able to automatically resize. So I'm going to install those packages. Awesome. Now that I've got those packages installed, I want to create a swap file. If you remember, while we were doing the install, I wouldn't allow the installer to create a swap partition. I still want a little bit of swap. It can come in handy, so I'm going to use the dd command. I think it was if dev0. It's input file of dev0, output file of swap file. We'll just leave that on the root file system. I want it to have a block size of 1 megabyte and a count of 2048. And that'll create a file on the root file system called swap file, which you can see right here. And it'll have a size of 2 gigabytes. and that's what's going to be our swap file. So I need to change the permissions on this to 600, so that'll make it so that only root can use this file. And then I want to make swap swap file, if I can stop with the typos. There we go. So that file is now ready to be used for swap, and we need to set it up so that it will configure it on boot. And in order to do that, I'm going to use an echo statement, and that's going to say swap file swap SW000, and I'm going to tell it to append the etc fs tab file. So what that did is it's going to add this line right here to the bottom of the fs tab file, and I'm just going to verify that with a cat. And you can see right on the bottom, swap file none swap SW00 was added. So that will allow the swap to be enabled on boot. A few things I want to do is I want to get rid of that temp user I created. So I'm going to use the user delete command with -R for temp. And it looks like that worked. So I'm going to look at my home directory. Good. Temp user is gone. I want to disable the root user from getting access to login. And to do that, if you've watched my previous video, this is where I'm modifying things a little bit. I'm going to go to the etc shadow file. And in here you can see there is a string of characters between 2 colons right here that I'm going to eliminate. And those characters were a hashed password string. So by removing it and adding this exclamation mark and star symbol, we're making it so the root user can't log into any shells, can't use SSH. It's effectively making it unusable to anyone outside of the sudo group. So I'm going to save that. And another thing I forgot to mention in my last video is I should secure SSH. So to do that, I'm going to go to etc sshd config, and what I want to do is also lock out the root user on here. So, I can see it already. Where it says permit root login here, I'm going to get rid of the comment, and I'm going to simply replace this with the word no. So this is going to make it so that the root user cannot log into SSH, both because it doesn't have a password and because it's locked out of SSH. If you are using SSH keys, it's not a bad idea at this point to disable password login. So right here where it says password authentication, it would be a wise idea at this point to turn that to no. But since I don't have my SSH keys generated yet, I'm going to leave this as yes. So we're going to write this and quit. And that's effectively how I want to leave this template. I have no root user on here, I have no other users, and now my cloud init will create a new user with sudo privileges when I attach my cloud init drive. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to shut down now. I have 2 more things left to do. I want to go into hardware, and I want to add a cloud init drive. We'll just use local storage for this again. So if I want to deploy this template with a different user on different machines, I can do that using Cloud Init. And we'll go to the Cloud Init settings, and I got to change a few things here. I'm going to give this the Hardwood Home Lab user. Give it a password. And if I had an SSH key, I could put it in here and it would automatically populate when I started a new VM. So this is ready as a template. I'm going to right click on the virtual machine and convert to template. Yes. Perfect. It's done. You can see the icon changed here, and we're ready to use this to create new virtual machines. As you can see in the Cloud Init settings here, as you deploy it, it should upgrade the packages when it's booting up for the first time. It'll also change the host name based off of what you've created. Okay, so the template is ready to go. I'm going to give it a test drive. We'll call this one temp because I'm going to get rid of it when we're done. I'll do a full clone, and then we will clone this guy. And I didn't show this, but the Cloud Init settings did copy over from the template, so this Hardwood Home Lab user should be in there. Alright, so that took about a minute for it to create the new virtual machine, but it's ready to go now. You can see the hardware is all the same as that template that we had, and I'm going to go to the console here and boot it up. We'll see what we've got. Alright, so it boots up. You can see here that the host name was changed to the VM name we created. And we'll see if my user was installed. And it was. If I try switching to root, the root account is disabled. So this is kind of how I wanted it to look. Let's take a look at my disk usage. I've got 132 gig drive. Let's see, free. My swap is loaded up and is looking good. So that's exactly what I wanted from this template. I also should check here. The QEMU guest agent is working, so it's reading the IP address from the virtual machine, and that means that Proxmox can interact with this virtual machine for things like a safe shutdown. So I'll try that. I will click the shutdown. Yes. And you can see that Proxmox was able to safely shut that down. And the last thing I want to test is if I can resize the hard drive. So we'll go to disk action, resize. Let's give that another 32 gigs. We'll resize the disk. As you can see, it went to 64 gigs there. I'll boot this up one more time. Well, and you can see right there that it resized the disk. And if we look at the disk usage, it's showing we've got 63 gigs now. And that's perfect. That's how I wanted my template to be. By doing it this way, I managed to get a few packages into the template that I wouldn't have got if I'd have downloaded a cloud image from an outside source. So that's how I'm going to leave this today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.